Welcome to this model. In this model, we are going to see about the mail transfer phases. The process of transferring a mail message occurs in three phases called connection establishment, mail transfer, and connection termination. Let us see how we can directly use SMTP to send an email and simulate the commands and responses, and we'll use telnet to log into port 5, that is a well-known port of SMTP. We then use the commands directly to send an email. So in this example, say for example, Farouzan B at adelphia.net is sending an email to himself. The first few lines show telnet trying to connect to Adelphia mail server. After connection, we can type the SMTP command and then receive the responses. And we have shown the commands in black, some responses in color, or that we have added for clarification some comment files with some descriptions like. So, for example, if you see the content, after the client has made a TCP connection to the well-known port 25, the SMTP server starts the connection phase. This phase involves the three steps. First, the server sends the code 220, which means that the service is ready to tell the client that it is ready to receive a mail. If the server is not ready, it sends the code 421, which means that the service is not available. The client then sends the hello message to identify itself using its domain name address, and this step is necessary to inform the server of the domain, the name of the domain name of the client. And then the server responds with code 250, which means that the request command completed or some other code depending upon the situation. And message transfer means after connection has been established, we have to transfer the message between the SMTP client and the server. A single message between the sender and one or more recipients can also be exchanged. So this phase involves 8 steps. So steps 3 and 4 are repeated if there is more than one recipient. And the first step is the client sends the mail from message to introduce the sender of the message. It includes the mail address of the sender, that is the mailbox and the domain name. And this step is needed to give the server the return mail address for returning errors and reporting messages. And second step is the server responds with the code 250 or some other appropriate code. And the third step is the client sends the RCPT2, that is recipient message, which includes the mail address of the recipient. And the server now responds with code 250 or some other appropriate code. And then the client then sends the data message to initialize the message transfer. And then the server responds with code 354. 354 means start mail input or some other appropriate message. The client sends the contents of the message in consecutive lines. Each line is terminated by a 2-character end of line token, that is carriage return and line feed. The message is terminated by a line containing just one period. The server responds with code 250, that is OK. 250 means OK. Then request command completed or some other appropriate code. And these are the 8 steps that has to be followed while message transfer. And for connection termination, after the message is transferred successfully, the client terminates the connection. For termination connection, we need 2 steps that has to be followed. And the first step is the client first sends the quit command. The server then responds with code 221. 221 means service closing transmission channel or some other, it can also send some other appropriate code. So this diagram shows how these connection terminations, kind of message transfer, everything happens. And now let's see the message access agent, the POP and IMAP. The first and the second stages of mail delivery use SMTP. However, SMTP is not involved in the third stage because SMTP is a push protocol. It pushes the message from the client to the server. Or you can say that the direction of the bulk data, that is messages, is from the client to the server. The third stage needs a pull protocol. The client must pull the messages from the server. The direction of the bulk data is from the server to the client, and the third stage uses a message access agent. Now let's see the diagram. So currently two message access protocols are available. One is POP, that is Post Office Protocol version 3, that is POP 3, and Internet Mail Access Protocol version 4, that is IMAP 4. And the position of these two protocols in the most common situations can be found. And the fourth scenario, the Post Office Protocol, that is version 3, is simple and limited in functionality. The client POP3 software is installed on the recipient computer. The server POP3 software is installed on the mail server. So mail access starts with the client, and when the user needs to download the email from the mailbox on the mail server. The client opens a connection to the server on TCP port 110. It then sends its username and password to access the mailbox. The user can then list and retrieve the mail messages one by one. So this diagram shows the example of downloading using POP3. POP3 has two modes, the delete mode and keep mode. In the delete mode, the mail is deleted from the mailbox after each retrieval. In the keep mode, the mail remains in the mailbox after retrieval. The delete mode is normally used when the user is working at her permanent computer and can save and organize the received mail after reading and replying. The keep mode is normally used when the user accesses her mail away from her primary computer, for example, laptop. So the mail is read but kept in the system for later retrieval and organizing. Another mail access protocol is Internet Mail Access Protocol version 4, IMAP 4, which is similar to POP3 but it has more features than POP3. IMAP 4 is more powerful and more complex. POP3 is deficient in several ways. It doesn't allow the user to organize her mail in the server. The user cannot have different folders on the server. Of course, the user can create folders on her own computer. In addition, POP3 doesn't allow the user to partially check the contents of email before downloading. So IMAP provides the following functions. One is the user can check the email header prior to downloading, and the user can search the contents of email for a specific string of characters prior to downloading. A user can partially download email, and this is especially useful if the bandwidth is limited and the email contains multimedia with high bandwidth requirements. A user can create or delete, rename or mailboxes on the mail server. A user can create a hierarchy of mailboxes in a folder for email storage. Email is such a common application that some websites today provide this service to anyone who accesses this site. Two common sites are Hotmail and Yahoo. The idea is very simple. The mail from the alias browser to her mail server is done through HTTP. The transfer of the message from the sending mail server to the receiving mail server is still through SMTP. Finally, the message from the receiving server to Bob's browser is done through HTTP again. That is a web server. The last phase is very interesting. Instead of POP3 or IMAP4, HTTP is normally used. When Bob needs to retrieve his emails, he sends a message to the website, that is Hotmail for example. The website sends the form to be filled in by Bob, which includes the login name and password. If the login name and password match, the email is transferred from the web server to Bob's browser in HTML format. Electronic mail has simple structure. Its simplicity, however, comes with price. It can send messages only in NBT 7-bit ASCII format. In other words, it has some limitations. It cannot be used for languages other than English, such as French, German, Hebrew, Russian, Chinese, and Japanese. Also, it cannot be used to send binary files or video or audio data. Therefore, the MIME is used. MIME is not as a supplementary protocol that allows the non-ASCII data to be sent through email. That is multi-purpose internet mail extensions. So, MIME transforms the non-ASCII data at the sender side to the NVT ASCII data and delivers it to the client MTA to be sent through the internet. The message at the receiving side is transformed back to original data. We can think of the MIME as a set of software functions that transforms the non-ASCII data to ASCII and vice versa. Thank you.